Hey y'all, so I'm making a video for day 8. It might say day 10 in your packets, but it's actually day 8. Solving equations with addition. So what you're going to do is watch this video, complete the questions that are embedded in it. Then you will have a Schoology assignment, and then to finish off the day, you'll have a little exit ticket with 3 completion questions. I'm also going to be doing day 9 and 10 and so on and so forth. And this is going to be your daily routine. You're going to come in, watch the video of whatever day you're on, complete the Schoology assignment, and then you have a little completion ticket half sheet to say that you can move on to the next day notes. Okay? So let's get going. Student notes, day 8, solving equations with addition. So solving equations with addition, you guys should have been doing for a while, but we're going to go over it again to make sure that we understand. So right now, this equation, up until this point, we haven't had equations either. We have expressions. Now we're dealing with equations with an equal sign. So we're going to try and solve it. So what this equation is saying is some number, x, plus 5 is equal to 7. So we're trying to figure out what number this is. Now, a lot of you are going to say, oh, I can just do this in my head. That may be true for these problems right now, but what we're doing is making these building blocks, creating the skills to be able to solve an even more complicated equation. So what we're going to do is we're going to practice solving these equations with all our work shown. So first, I need to get rid of this x plus 5. And this x is not alone because this plus 5 is here. So I need to do the opposite, the inverse or opposite operation. So we have plus 5, which the inverse operation is minus 5. And if you guys recall, whatever you do to one side, you do have to do the other because we're manipulating this equation. If you do it to both sides, then it works out. So now you have plus 5 minus 5, a positive 5 minus 5. That actually equals 0. So we would have x plus 0 equals 7 minus 5, which is 2. Now this plus 0 is kind of unnecessary because if I subtract 0 again, I still get 2. So I can just rewrite it as x equals 2. Now, in order to make sure that we know this is right, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to check my work. So I'm going to, instead of 2, wherever I see x, I just put a 2 plus 5, and that should equal 7. 2 plus 5 is, in fact, 7, so we are correct in that x equals 2. Okay, so now we're going to do it again. Let's do blue this time. So now this equation we need to solve for x, and this is saying some number plus 3 equals 10. And again, you might be able to do this in your head, but we are going to solve it with all of our work shown. So x plus 3 equals 10. We need to get this x alone. So the inverse operation is subtracting 3. And what you do to one side, you must do to the other. Positive 3 minus 3 is just 0, so they effectively cancel each other out. And we have x equals 10 minus 3, which is 7. Now, before I know that this is my answer, I need to double check. So I have 7 plus 3, and that should equal 10. 7 plus 3 is, in fact, 10. So our equation is correct, and we have x equals 7. So that's solving equations with addition when they have an addition. Now we're going to go down to solving equations with subtraction. I went too far. There we go. Oh, nope, don't do that. Okay, solving equations with subtraction. Okay, let's do green this time. So now instead of a plus sign, we have a minus sign, but it's the same thing. Instead of the inverse operation being subtraction, now the inverse operation is addition. So we are adding 6 to both sides. Negative 6 plus 6 cancels out, so we have x equals 15 plus 6 is 21. Now, before we can be sure, we have to double check. So 21 minus 6 should equal 15. 21 minus 6, sure enough, does equal 15, and x does in fact equal 21. All right, we're on a roll. Let's do orange. Example 4, solve. And guys, you should be taking notes with this and writing it down just like I'm doing. X minus 9 equals 9. So we have to get rid of this 9 in order to isolate the variable. Isolate the variable. And we should all be familiar with this word isolate because we've all been in isolation for this pandemic. So we know isolate means to get alone. We want to get X alone. So in order to do that, we have to add 9 to both sides. That cancels out my 9s, and my X is now isolated. It's now alone. 9 plus 9 is 18. And now I need to double check. Is in fact 18 minus 9 equal to 9? 18 minus 9 is 9. So yay, X equals 18. Now we're going to mix it up. Sometimes it'll be addition and sometimes it'll be subtraction. We'll have to figure it out. So I have X plus 7 equals negative 5. And again, this is why we went over adding and subtracting sign numbers so that we have that skill in our tool belt. So X plus 9, the inverse operation for this time is X plus 7. So we subtract 7 from both sides. That cancels my 7s out. It isolates my variable. Negative 5 minus 7, they are the same sign. So you add 5 plus 7, which is 12. And they have a negative. So it's negative 12. Before I'm sure, I need to double check. Negative 12 plus 7 should be equal to negative 5. Negative 12 plus 7, I'm in debt $12. I add $7. Now I only owe $5. And this is correct. So X is equal to negative 12. Let's try another one. Example 6. Oh, don't do that. Okay, so come down here. Oh no, my X is on the wrong side. Does that change anything? No. Negative 7 equals X plus 5 is the same thing as X plus 5 equals negative 7. It doesn't matter if they've switched sides. If I'm facing forward, I'm still a human. If I'm facing backwards, I'm still a human. This is still an equation even if X is on the other side. We still do the same thing. We still isolate the variable. We just isolate it on the right side now. So this positive 5 plus 5 is what's keeping my X from being isolated. So I have to subtract 5 from both sides. That cancels those out. We're left with X isolated, yay. Negative 7 minus 5, so we're going to be going more negative all the way to negative 12. Now I got to double check. Is negative 12 plus 5 actually equal to negative 7? Yes, it is. Negative 12 plus 5 is negative 7. So my X is equal to negative 12. Yay. All right, example 7. Oh no, decimals. Decimals are okay. We can still solve with a decimal. Might just take a little bit more mental math. So example 7, the first thing I see right here is this double negative right next to each other. This is basically doing distribution like we did last time because there's an understood 1. So we distribute this negative 1 to the negative 2.7, and we get y plus 2.7. A negative and a negative makes a positive when we are multiplying or dividing. And that equals negative 9.2. So now we can solve. Instead of adding, we have to subtract 2.7 from both sides. That cancels those out, and y equals negative 9.2 minus 2.7. That means we're going to have a bigger negative number, and it will be 11.9, and it is negative. Now we just need to double check. Is that correct? Does y actually equal negative 11.9? So we plug it into our equation. Negative 11.9 minus a negative 2.7 should be equal to negative 9.2. We have negative 11.9 plus 2.7 because we distribute the negative 1. That should be equal to 9.2 and negative 9.2, and it is in fact equal to negative 9.2. So x does in fact equal negative 11.9. Example 8. Oh no, fractions! Fractions are okay. And lucky for us, these already have a common denominator. So what we do when we're adding or subtracting fractions, we just deal with the numerator as long as it has a common denominator. And it does. So again, we need to isolate the variable. First, we have to do the inverse operation, which is subtracting 3/10 from both sides. That cancels those out. 7/10 minus 3/10 is 4/10. And that is equal to y. Now, we can simplify this. However, first I want to check because this has a common denominator. So I have 7/10 should be equal to 4/10 plus 3/10. Is that true? 4 plus 3 is 7/10. So y is equal to 4/10, which if we reduce that is also 2/5. So I would accept both 4/10 and 2/5. All right, so that is the end of day 8 notes. So go ahead and at this point, you're going to go do your Schoology assignment. And then once you feel comfortable with those problems, then you have a understanding check half sheet that you can get from your teacher. And that is it for the day 8, Unit 2, day 8 notes. The next video will be Unit 2, day 9 notes.